Hello and welcome to Selling Digital Art, a webinar geared towards creatives and other digital artists to show you how to build a profitable digital art business. Welcome to your first step of setting up a profitable digital art business. This is a very exciting time if you are a digital artist because more and more businesses are hiring out digital artists for their work. So it's a great time to set up a business and see if you can do it on the side or grow it into something that could potentially be your full-time career. My name is Vanessa Sage and I am the owner of Cauldron Press, which is a book cover design and other digital art services geared towards authors. So what can you expect from this webinar? In this webinar, we'll go over some of the steps you'll need to take in order to begin selling your digital art. We will walk through the foundations you will be laying down prior to starting your business, whether it be part-time or full-time or something in between. Some of the topics we'll cover are your portfolio, how to get clients, website design, pricing, and so much more. This webinar will be jam-packed with information, so we can get right into it. But before we do, I want to point out one of my favorite quotes by Michelangelo, which says the most common money-making mistake artists make is a reluctance to invest in their own careers. And I find that to be incredibly precise and very, very useful even in today's world, because as an artist, we always think of our art as a creative endeavor. And it's hard to differentiate that endeavor from the creative to the business side. However, if you really want to make money from your art, you need to think like a business person. And what we're going to do during this webinar is try to create a bridge in between the creative and the business mindset in order for you to succeed. So a little bit about me so you can get to know who it is that is running this webinar for you. As I mentioned before, my name is Vanessa. I've been a photographer and digital artist and graphic designer for almost 2 decades now, having previously worked as a senior director of creative services in large-scale marketing firms. I have a wide range of experience in the creative field. My work led me to the world of book covers, where I fell in love with the art of cover design. And since then, I have built a successful and thriving book cover design business, which specializes in fantasy design, among other genres. I should point out that the reason that I got into cover design and why I'm so passionate about it, specifically offering design services and digital art services to authors, is because I am an author myself. I have published 15 young adult fantasy novels to date, and I don't plan to stop. So I am a creative through and through from every part of my being. And as you can see, if someone like me who is very much creative can build a business that is now their full-time income, then really anyone can do it. Before we get into the bulk of this webinar, I want to talk to you about some of the reasons why art businesses fail. There are a few reasons why your digital art business may not be getting all the traction that you truly know it deserves. And you know what? They have nothing to do with your actual art. So what do they have to do with? Well, for starters, it's not you. I know we've heard this saying before, and it's usually quite comical, but in this case, it is very much true. It isn't you. There are a couple of reasons that your art business could fail, and 3 of the main ones that I see in other digital art businesses is a lack of planning, no future thinking, and no market research. For lack of planning, the key to any business is having a proper plan in place and the means to execute it. A digital art business is no exception to this rule. You really need to think of your business as you would a brick and mortar store or any other business venture you might be getting into a part of. You need to plan it out. Future thinking. While you may have had success with your digital art so far, it's important to think ahead and always be ready to pivot. Trends change, technology changes, people expect different things from digital artists and they expect different services. So are you ready to make that change when it's necessary to do so? And market research. Owning an art-based business is not only about the art itself. You need to know what the market wants in order to stay relevant and profitable. You need to shift with the market, and you need to do that research in order to be able to shift accordingly. So how do you not fail? There are 12 important aspects of development you can implement into your digital art business, and we're going to cover all of them in this webinar. Remember when I said it's going to be jam-packed with information? Well, we have 12 different various ways to cover in order for your business to grow. It's going to be a slightly longer one than you might expect, but sit back, grab a notebook, and let's get started. The main reasons that we are going to cover these 12 different aspects is that they're going to help you develop and grow your business. We are going to talk about your portfolio, which is what to use and why. We're going to talk about clients, how and where to get them. We're going to discuss a website and tips for websites that actually convert to sales. We will also talk about social media, which platforms to use and how to use them, newsletters, the importance of email collection and when you should start. We will definitely discuss pricing and how you can price your work for optimal results. More so, we'll discuss branding and how to make your business stand out. We'll go over a business plan, and I will provide you with a one-page plan in order to grow your business. And we'll talk about your workflow, which is what to have ready before you start. We'll also be discussing client expectation and ways to avoid trouble down the line. We'll go over invoicing and how you can get paid and some tips on money management. And lastly, we will talk about learning and what to do once you start your business. The first thing I'd like to talk to you about is your portfolio. As we all know, for any kind of artistry, any kind of creative work, your portfolio is key. And having a strong portfolio will make landing clients so much easier, both at the beginning of your business and much later in your career. Before you do anything else, consider putting time away into building a portfolio you can be proud of to use as a calling card. Your portfolio should be indicative of who you are as an artist, your general growth as an artist, and what you can offer to your client. The first tip I have for you for your portfolio and when you're building it is to niche down. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to offer everything. And you don't have to create every type of art that somebody might expect you to create. The beauty of being a digital artist and niching down is that there will always be a client for your specific niche. And the more niche that you are, the better you will have of reaching your ideal client and having the word spread about you as being a contender and an expert in that specific niche. You also want to think about quality over quantity. When you are presenting your portfolio online or in a client meeting or whichever way you choose to present it, quality always wins. And there's no point of having a lot of work out there if that work is not indicative of your current skill set. And that should be your best skill set. So please consider quality when putting your portfolio into place and get rid of anything that does not fit your current style or your current skill level. Before you have clients, it might be difficult to think about how to build your portfolio. You might not have the work there yet, but you can work on personal projects until you get there. Try to develop your skills and create the type of work that you know you will want to sell to clients later. Once you have that, you can actually use that work that may not have been client work at all to put in your portfolio. Without straying too much from your niche, you want to show your clients that you are able to go outside of it, venture outside of that in case they need to, and show a variety of abilities. So your digital art should really represent your skill set, but it should also show that you're able to grow and expand. And if a client has something that might be outside of the box, that you are willing to experiment with them and go along that journey with them. Most importantly, keep it simple. Don't overthink your portfolio. Don't overthink what you want to put in there. Just think of the work that best represents who you are as a digital artist today and compile that into one specific space. The more simple it is, the easier it will be for your clients to get to know you and understand who you are as an artist and who you are as someone to work with. In the resources section, just in the notes of this webinar, you'll find a few different samples of portfolios that I've compiled that I think are a wonderful, wonderful way of showing a digital artist's skill set. I'm also going to link my own portfolio there so you can see the way that I organize it on my website. One of the most daunting things that you can have out there as a digital artist when you first start out creating this as a business is finding your clients. It might be very scary to think about how do you find them, where do you find them, and finding clients can be one of the most horrifying things that might actually keep you from starting your business, but it really doesn't have to be. There are a few ways that you can put yourself out there and your business out there to get the right client for you. And guess what? It really does not have to depend on paid advertising of any kind, and it does not have to feel sleazy. I know for myself, my main barrier to overcome when getting clients when I first started out is feeling like a door-to-door knife salesman. I did not want to knock on doors. I did not want to come in uninvited, but I also wanted to let people know about my business. And there are plenty of ways to do that, and you'd be surprised at how many people actually want to hear about what you have to offer in your business. Some good ways to find your clients are to go to pre-existing setups on the internet and different apps and different websites that already are created for creatives and digital artists to connect to clients and vice versa. There's places like Fiverr, Upwork, 99 Designs, and many others. When you go on these places, what you essentially will do is you will create a mini website for yourself, a portfolio website on these websites, and you will offer jobs. They all work differently. Some require bidding, some require you to just be on there, but they all have one thing in common. They are destination points where clients go to find different artists and different creatives. So a good point to start is on one of these sites. I would, however, recommend that you don't necessarily put all your eggs in that basket. You might start out here. You might try to get the word out about your work, get more experience, get more clients. And then what I would definitely recommend is to go ahead and create your own website, your own destination portal for clients to find you. And we will talk about the website later on in this webinar, but that is something that you might want to think about. The reason that I say this is because you don't want to be dependent on somebody else to be providing you with client work all of the time. You don't want to necessarily have this middleman, because if that middleman is gone, your connection to any clients out there is severed and you are back in the dark again. It's back to square one. So you really want to think about having your own destination where you can guide the clients that you will receive from these places for the future. If you're struggling with having products to sell at the beginning, you might not have any projects lined up. You might not have a client yet, even though you have gone to these other sites and you have set up your portfolio on there and you've been bidding on projects, but it's just too early in the game for you to have anything. What you could consider doing is having pre-designed artwork that's ready to sell. I have this on my site. And in general, in my business, as pre-made book covers, I design them myself and I sell them. I put them out there, and whoever wants them, they can just purchase them. And whether they have a story in mind or they come up with a story when they see the cover, it's up to them. So having work that you've already done out there and ready to sell is a good way to start out, not just building your portfolio, by finding clients, because clients might find you from this pre-designed artwork and they might commission you for a custom work based on your style that they've seen in this pre-designed work. Now, this one might come with a grain of salt, but one great recommendation that I got when I was first starting out is to offer to do work for free or to do it at a discounted price. Just do it at a very low price if you are setting a price, but I would recommend going the free route and posting that on social media. So you can post on social media saying, hey, I'm an artist, I'm just starting out, I want to do this and this and this type of work, and I am offering this many slots on my calendar for free work right now. Please private message me and let's see if we can work together. And that's a really great way to not just get your portfolio started, which is all key. We're always going back to that portfolio, but it's a good way to form connections with people that might require your type of work, because you might do this one job for someone for free. However, they might know someone and recommend you based on the work that you did for them. So it's a great way to get your foot in the door. The next one is to spread the word. Keep talking about yourself. Don't be ashamed of it. Digital art is a fantastic way to not just make a living, but just to create something and put it out there in the world. And so spread the word. Talk about yourself. Talk about your business. Once you have a few social media sites set up for your business, or even if you don't yet, tell people what you're doing. Take pictures of the art you're doing and show it to them. You never know what might come out of it. People might see what you're doing, even if it's just a hobby for now, and they might remember that. It might trigger something. So when you are ready to accept commissions, to take on clients, they'll remember you as the person that did all this great artwork and put it out there, and they'll reach out. And then lastly, you want to find out where your ideal client is, and you want to spend time there. Now, what do I mean by that? So let's say if your ideal client, in my case, for example, my ideal client is an author. I am an author myself, so it helps because I already know where these people hang out, and a lot of them are friends of mine that I was able to reach out to originally when I started my business. However, if you don't know who your ideal client is, what you want to do first is sit down and figure out who the person is that will be reaching out to you to create this digital art. Let's say you do portrait commissions, and I think authors are great for this as well. So if you are somebody who's doing portrait commissions, consider having an author as your ideal client. I have commissioned many digital artists to do many portraits of my characters that I write about throughout my time as an author. So that's something to think about. But let's say you do a lot of portraiture. Let's say you do comic book style portraiture, and that is the style of digital art that you do. Now, your ideal client, you're thinking, are authors. So if your ideal client is an author, what are they going to want? So definitely they're going to want to see any kind of portraiture based on other books, maybe popular books. So if you read popular books, then make sure that you take note of the characters, do some artwork based on those characters, and start building your portfolio that's tailored to your ideal client and what they want to see. And now your ideal client, if they're an author and they might be looking for commissioned portraiture of characters from their book, where are they spending time? So on social media, where would they be? They'd probably be in Facebook groups, so you might want to take a look there. A lot of them are on TikTok right now, so you might want to take a look there. Just make sure that you are spending time where your ideal client is. And don't do it in a very sleazy way. You don't have to be odd about it at all. It doesn't have to be salesy. You can just go to these places and hang out there, because chances are your ideal client and you have a lot in common. You both like the same things. You just work at it in a different way. So be authentic, be yourself, and just try to make friends with people that you know would be your ideal client. It doesn't mean you're going to sell them something now or in the future. It just means that you're getting to know people and others like them. And now we're in the website portion. This is my favorite part, because truly having your own website and your own little hub where you can host yourself and your digital art is so important to your business. It will allow you to do a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about a little bit later, such as branding and putting your voice out there. But it will allow you a space to do that and a space to connect with your clients on your own terms. And so your website really needs to shine, because it's that important. One of the most important parts of setting up your digital art business is creating this website. This is the hub where your ideal client that we just talked about will find you. They'll see your work and they'll interact with you here. It has to be in good shape in order to convert those visitors to paying clients. There are different ways that you can go about creating your website, and I will leave that up to you to decide. You could do some research on places like Wix, WordPress, Squarespace. You can hire someone to do your website for you. My main recommendation is that you pick something that you can update on your own regularly without having to pay someone regularly. That's why I always recommend places like Squarespace and WordPress. I personally use Squarespace for all of my websites. I just find it very easy. I find the e-commerce of it very easy, so I can actually sell products directly on my site. And it's just an easier space for me to maneuver. I was with WordPress before. I have switched over to Squarespace, but WordPress is still a really great choice. So take a look. Do some research, maybe talk to other digital artists just like yourself and see what they prefer. My own personal recommendation would be Squarespace, but it's completely up to you what you choose. And as we talked about before in the portfolio section, you want to start with a minimal portfolio. Your website, when you are first building it and you're first starting out, it doesn't have to come with bells and whistles. The less you have on there, the less chance there is that your client, your ideal client who will find you because you've been interacting with them now, there is less chance of them going other places on the site and getting too distracted and then not following through with contacting you or hiring you or buying something if you have something for sale. So you want to start with a minimal portfolio. Don't overthink it. Just put something out there and start with that. Don't forget to check the mobile view as well. So a lot of websites will have a very beautiful view for your desktop, but then when you go to check it on the mobile view, some things are going to get wonky. You're going to have pictures out of spots. You're going to have text that's not where you want it to be. So just make sure that mobile view is key, because the majority of people at this point and this time are always on their phones, and that's where they're checking first. So you want to make sure that your mobile view is looking really sharp, and it might even be more important than your actual desktop view at this point. Another good tip for your website is to have very easy, very straightforward navigation. So what I mean by that is the menu that you usually see. Don't have it go too crazy. You don't need too many drop downs. You just kind of want your main menu. You want an About Me section. You want to have a section that describes what you do as an artist, a section that lists out your services, a section that shows your portfolio, and a way to contact you. So just keep your navigation very, very simple and very easy to find. You want it right at the top of that website so they can see what they're getting into. Make sure that on your homepage, all your services are listed out clearly. So your main services, the main moneymaker that you will have, should be the first to be listed on your homepage. And you want to make sure that you have them on the homepage and not just hidden on a menu or on a different page that people then have to go to, because you want to hit people on the head with that nail. You really want to make sure that they know what you're all about and what it is that you can offer them. Another advice that I would have for you is not to hide your prices. You don't want to be the person that people need to reach out to in order to find out how much anything is going to cost. Now, there are different viewpoints on this, but I strongly believe that if you show your prices up front, you will definitely get more click-through and more people contacting you than you would otherwise. When people don't see an upfront price point, they might think the price is too high and they will shy away from contacting you, even though your prices might actually be reasonable, even on the low side when you're starting out. So you want to show those prices up front, especially if they are lower, because that could be your selling card. Then you want to have your contact info easy and ready to go. Show people exactly where to contact you. Have it be in the menu, have it be on the homepage. Make sure you're always leading them into that contact mode, so you're always having that call to action for them to reach out to you. You also want to make your social links visible. So you do want to make your social links. When you were looking for that ideal reader, you might have known where they hang out, and you kind of set up your own social media channels for your business, exactly where your reader might find you. You want to make those social links visible, especially if you have something to be proud of. Let's say you've built a really high Instagram following and it's something that you're proud of and you do it every day. Make that front and center and show people that you already have others interested in your art and who you are as an artist. So back to the straightforward navigation, so people know exactly where they're going on your site. You want to keep that menu to the core minimum. You don't want to add too many things, just the main basics. And then as they're navigating your site, which is very easy to go through, they can find out more if they need to. But for the most part, you just need the core basics in that menu. Lastly, and probably the most important, is only show your current work. Don't put things out there that you might have worked on years ago that don't necessarily show off who you are as an artist today. It will hinder you and it will hurt you in the long run, because you want to show not just what you're capable of doing today, because then when people hire you, they're getting your current capabilities and they know exactly what they're seeing, but you're not confusing your ideal client or your client or anybody who lands on your site, you're not confusing them into thinking that you have all these different ways of working. They know who you are because you're showing them exactly who you are at this point. So get rid of anything that does not show that. We're now in the social media part of this webinar. I have a love-hate relationship with social media, as I'm sure most creatives do. We really love to hate this tool, and it's a great promotion tool. But as an artist, you might find yourself asking, what does being social have to do with my art? And the truthful answer to that is everything. It has everything to do with your art, and mostly it has everything to do with your business and growing your business. And it has even more to do with connecting to your clients. Using social media correctly can help propel your digital art business much faster and in a way that's going to guarantee working with return clients, which is exactly what we want here. So why do we leverage social media? The main point of social media is to get the word out to prospective clients. You want to, as we mentioned before, hang out where your ideal client is, and you want to reach out to them there. You want to connect with them there. And the point of social media is to connect people with other people, and much more recently, businesses with clients. And so you want to really push yourself out there. You don't need to be on every single social media site, but you need to be on at least some of them. Some great areas to get social, and we are talking about social here, are places like Facebook groups, Instagram, Reels are particularly popular right now, and TikTok. TikTok is a huge growing social media platform. It is now one of the biggest, actually the biggest social media platform to date, and it is growing exponentially every single day. So you really want to figure out where it is where you will be on social and get there. I didn't mention Pinterest here, as you can see, because Pinterest is not really a social media channel. Pinterest is more of a library. It is a search engine. And while Pinterest is great to leverage for any kind of digital art because it's great for portfolios, it is not a place that I would say is very social. You can't interact with people. You can't really chat with people. You can't directly connect with people. It's more of a search platform, and it's a great search platform in that, but it has nothing to do with being social. So that is why it is not on the list, if you are wondering. Now, when I first started my business, Facebook groups were a big thing for me. And unfortunately, TikTok is kind of taking over right now, and Facebook groups are going by the wayside. But for me, Facebook groups was a great start. Facebook groups allowed me to not just connect to other people, and I mean creating my own Facebook group. So what I did was, first, I created a page for my business on Facebook. Then I created a group for that same business on Facebook. And in that group, I started promoting and selling my pre-created art, something that we have discussed already, in that group. Now, I would also drive people to that group using my personal Facebook profile, because I was already friends and interacting with my ideal clients and people that I would call ideal clients, as I had done my research originally into finding my clients. These people were already my friends. They trusted me. We had a rapport. We had a connection. And it wasn't a salesman connection, because I truly believe that I am good friends with a lot of people that I know on Facebook, and it has nothing to do with them supporting my business financially. Now, what I did in that group, in that Facebook group, that really helped propel and launch my business was I had events where I had themed cover design parties where I would sell them directly on Facebook in the groups. And people would get the word out. They would invite other people. And at the time when I started, my Facebook group started to grow very, very fast. Now, I have slowly transitioned to Instagram Reels and TikTok, because video is king at the moment, and you want to leverage whatever it is that's working right now. So I still utilize my Facebook groups to sell pre-mades. It's still the first place where I post to keep that rapport, because that is my longest and truest clients to date, and I appreciate them so much that I want them to have first-hand dibs on everything that I create. However, for promotional purposes, I use Instagram Reels and TikTok right now. Now, posting to Reels, I have found that posting once a day is sufficient. And you can get some really good ground as long as you use the right hashtags. So research your hashtags. And on TikTok, people say anywhere between 1 to 3 times per day. I have had success doing once a day, and I have had success doing 3 times a day. So find a schedule that works for you and post on that schedule. Now, the main point of social media is you don't just want to share your portfolio. It's not just about showing off what you've done. It's nice to have a portfolio out there. It's nice to share your pieces, but this is not a mirror of your website, which is where your portfolio should truly live. Your social media should show things like behind the scenes, your life as an artist, things that you enjoy. You want people to get social. And to get social, they need to get to know you. So you want to show as much of yourself as you possibly can in order to form true connections with people. And it doesn't mean that these people are going to hire you, and it doesn't mean that they're going to financially support your business, but they might recommend you to someone who will. If you're looking to get more direct engagement, live videos are great for that. You could share a live video of you working on an art piece. You can share a live video of you talking about the current project. You can share a live video of you purchasing supplies, really. Anything that is live always does better for direct engagement, and that goes across all platforms, all social media platforms. Live always works better. You also want to think, when you are thinking about your social media, you want to think about how it is that you are going to provide value and be helpful. So you're not just there, like we said, showing off your portfolio and showing off your art. You're not just there to chat with people and get to know them. You want the people that you talk to, the people that you are social with on social media, to think that you have value, that you can add to them. Everybody wants somebody that can help them with something. It's just in the nature of what social media is. So if you can offer some kind of value, so tips and tricks, different things that you can maybe offer for free, some sort of small little digital freebies you can offer every once in a while. If you're doing giveaways, anything like that is a great way to provide some value. Now on TikTok, I've seen a lot of artists talk about different types of tools that they use and why they like them, their pros and cons, which works really well for people who might just want to get into digital art. And it doesn't mean that you're going to lose them as a client, but it means that they might just want to do something creative for themselves and try it out, and then they'll hire you for a job. And the absolute main point of getting social is that sell equals no. You don't want to be selling all of the time. You want to keep it to maybe a 10 to 15% ratio. So you're only selling 10 to 15% of the time. What you actually want to do is just share this value, be helpful, and just have direct engagement with people for the most part on your social media. And then once in a while, you're going to have a call to action, which will require a sale. One of the main pieces of advice that I was given, and this was well before I even started my cover design business. This was when I was first starting to write and being online as an author. And one of the main pieces of advice that was given to me was to start a newsletter and to start it immediately, not to wait, not to hold off, just start it right away. Nothing beats having direct contact with your potential clients, and you cannot depend on social media to do all the work for you. The scariest thing that you can think of is if you build up your social media and it is the only way, this particular channel, let's say your Instagram, is the only way that you can connect to your clients, and tomorrow Instagram shuts down. What do? Well, if you are lucky and if you were smart, you will still have that mailing list to fall back on. You will still have a way to reach your current clients, your potential clients, people who have shown interest in your business. And that is why you need to start your newsletter collection right away. Emails are essential to staying in touch and reminding your clients of who you are and why they need you. There are different newsletter providers out there that you can use. Some of the big ones ones are MailChimp, MailerLite, MailJet, ConvertKit. I personally use MailJet. I really like it. I started with MailChimp originally, and I have switched to MailJet as I started to grow for the simple reason of business budgeting. MailJet is much more affordable than both MailChimp, MailerLite, and ConvertKit. They have great packages. They're a little bit more hands-on. However, for the price point and what you can do with it, I think it's definitely worth it. You don't want to wait to collect emails. As I mentioned in kind of the small little intro to newsletter collection, you want to start right away. So you want to have your newsletter collection call to action on your website, on your social media, anywhere. Scream it from the rooftops. Once in a while, have posts on social media. Make sure every couple weeks, every week, that you let people know that you have a newsletter. And it's a great way to start getting those emails in just in case something happens. And it's also a great additional way to connect with your potential clients. So make sure that you are promoting that newsletter on your social media as much as possible and just getting that word out. But don't bombard the inboxes. So once you get your emails in place, please do not email people every single day for absolutely no reason. You want to let people know that you will only reach out to them for A, B, and C reasons. People need to understand that you're not going to spam them, and you cannot spam potential clients. You shouldn't spam anybody, really, but especially not anybody you want to work with. So make sure that whatever emails you're sending out, that they're relevant, that you have a schedule when you're sending them, and stick to that schedule. Having an incentive for people to sign up is a great way to get people onto your newsletter list, whether the incentive is as simple as letting people know, be the first people to know when you have new pre-made art done, or when you have, say, if you're doing courses or anything like that, when something like that comes up. So an incentive of some sort is great. If you're offering some kind of digital freebie, let's say you designed digital planner page, or you designed a cute little postcard that you illustrated. So any kind of free incentive is really great to get people to sign up. And make sure you stay consistent with your communication. So if you decided that you are only going to email people whenever there's something new dropping, make sure you have something new dropping on the schedule. Or if you decide that you're going to email people once a month, and in that email, what you're going to have in your newsletter is that value we discussed. So maybe you are telling them about new programs that you are using, or you are telling them about a sale that's running somewhere, or you are promoting other artists that they can look at. So make sure whatever communication you are having, that is regular and consistent. And the last thing is you want to keep your promise to your subscribers. So if you promise to give them some sort of value every single month, don't all of a sudden start sending them emails where you're just selling your products to them or your services. Offer that value that you told them they'll have. If you told them you're only going to email them when you have new art available for sale, don't start emailing them just to chat or to tell them how your day is going. So whatever you tell your customers at the beginning when they sign up, you got to keep that promise, because your word is how they'll see your business. And if your word as a business is not worth much, then they will not want to work with you. We are now entering the pricing part of this webinar, and figuring out how to price your digital art can be very, very scary. When I first started, I had no idea how to price anything that I was doing. I tried thinking about underpricing, overpricing, just kind of coming in at the medium. And it was really hard to narrow down how it was that I wanted to price my art. How did I know what to charge? Will I be working by hourly or flat rates? Will I take materials and time into account? And the answer to all of those really depends on your specific niche, but I do have some tips to help you get started with pricing your art in order to sell it. First and foremost, you want to research other artists in your field, and not just other artists in your field, but other artists in your field that are on the same skill set level as you. So don't research if you're just starting out and you're still building your portfolio and learning the skill. Do not research artists that may have been doing this for decades and are already top of the line when it comes to digital art. You want to look at people that are more or less on your level or just slightly above your level and see what they price and then take notes. So make a spreadsheet for yourself, make kind of a competitor. I really don't want to call it a competitor, but make another digital artist research list, and brainstorm whatever price points that you see that they have and write it down on that list. And you'll be able to see kind of a trend. So a median between those prices to give you a better idea of what people that are within your skill set are charging. When you're also just starting out, you might have less of a portfolio. So just because somebody is on the same skill set level as you, that doesn't mean that they are the same digital artist as you. Their portfolio might be very dynamic. They could have been working with a lot of clients already. And so you want to take that into account when you don't have much of a portfolio starting out. In order to do that, a great way to start is just to lower your starting price point by 10 to 15%. You can always raise your price at any point. Don't let anyone tell you that you have to wait a certain amount of time to raise your price. But once you start getting more of a demand for your work, you can always start raising your prices. I made a vow kind of for myself that when I first started Cauldron Press Designs, that I wasn't going to up the price until the end of the year. Now, I started kind of later in the year when I opened the business, but I knew I didn't want to raise the price until later in the year. And I knew that that first price point raise was not going to be a mainly significant one. However, after that, I also knew that as demand for my work started to grow and as my skills started to develop and grow, and as I got a lot more confident in my abilities and my portfolio became much more robust, I knew that I would not put limits on when my prices will be raised. And so I started to raise my prices at various times of the year. So it's important to make notes like this for yourself, but you want to start just a tiny bit lower because chances are that your portfolio won't be quite as ready as other people's. And of course, as your portfolio begins to grow, you are going to raise your prices accordingly. So as I mentioned, you might want to consider having yearly price raises. Just in general, it's an inflation technique and it happens in every other industry out there. So it should happen for digital art businesses as well. You want to think about the cost of materials will be going up. Your website hosting might be going up. Just in general, there's going to be an inflation of services that you use to run your business and your services. And so you might want to consider those yearly price raises anyways. A good way to calculate what you will be making is to calculate how many hours it takes to finish each service you offer, and then what you require to make per hour to live from. So if you're thinking about, let's say, 40 hours per week of work, which is full-time, times 52 weeks of the year, you're looking at 2,080 total hours of work. And that's without taking vacations, obviously. This is just thinking of just a regular 40-hour-a-week work week, which is what you would be doing if you were working for somebody else. Now, let's say that your desired salary for the year is $60,000. So you divide that 60,000 by 2,080 hours, which are your working hours, and you get about $30 an hour. You actually get about 29 and some change, but you can round it up to $30 an hour. So if you are working on an hourly schedule, you are charging $30 an hour. If you have different packages, so let's say you are doing character portrait commissions and it will take you approximately like 5 hours, let's say, to do one bust of a character, then you're multiplying those 5 hours of work into the $30 an hour, and you're going to be charging $150 an hour for that character bust. And that is how you can set your prices for specific things, or you can continue working per hour. I know a lot of digital artists that charge per hour to this day, and they don't charge per job. But don't forget your operating expenses. So let's say you calculate it is going to cost you $150. That's what you're going to charge. Your $150 per your character bust that you are digitally illustrating for somebody. Now, you don't want to forget your operating expenses. You want to take into account what you're spending monthly to host your website, to get your tools and supplies, maybe your internet usage because you're using that to connect with people. Are you paying for Dropbox to share those files with people? Are you paying for a larger Google Drive to share those files with people? So take into consideration everything else you're paying and figure out how much on top you would need to make to cover those costs as well. And the easiest ways to do it is to kind of think about how many clients you might have in a month and divide that number. And then you want to add that rough number that you get of price point to every single job. So let's say you came up with an additional $20 per client that you would need to charge to cover those expenses, then it would be $150 per character bust plus the $20. So you want to think about charging $170 instead of $150 for that specific job. Now, one really important thing to think about is branding. Branding is key here. We are visual artists, and so visually we should present ourselves in a certain way, and that goes not just for your art but also for your entire business. You want to make sure that your business has a voice that is loud and clear, and a voice that will make you stand out from other digital artists. Your own work, your art, it will speak for itself, of course, but in order to get people to know this, it's important that your business does some talking as well. And the best way to do that is really by branding. So what do I mean by branding your business? Well, first and foremost, and probably most importantly, you want to have a solid logo. So if you are not a logo designer, it is quite all right to hire somebody to do this for you, but you want to have a very solid logo, and you want to have variations of that logo that you can leverage on different social media channels, on your website, on your email communication. So you just want to make sure that your logo represents who you are as an artist, and it's something that you're going to be using regularly going forward. You also want to choose your fonts and your colors, and you need to stick to them. And that means sticking to them across the board. So not just on your website, but in all email communication and all of your social media. Just figure out which color base you're going to have for your total brand, for your business, and which main fonts you're going to be using. And you want to make sure you're using them everywhere. If you're using Canva for any marketing materials, I would definitely recommend going the pro route of Canva here, because you can actually upload your own fonts and create these different stylized sheets for each and every single one of your brands. In this case, the brand would be the business, and you want to make sure that anything, any material, any social media post, any communication you put out there, even any type of materials or paperwork that you give your clients has to follow within this brand and have these fonts and these colors. Make sure you also write out your brand message. So your brand message will basically be what you stand for as a business. And in this case, what you stand for as a digital artist. So you want to write that out for yourself. Take some time to think about it, work on it a little bit, but you want to make sure that you have that brand message really embedded in your brain, because you're going to be using that as your voice when you speak to people. You want to make sure that your branding stays consistent on your website and all your social media websites. So if you are looking at, say, your website and the colors that you look on them, whatever you post to Instagram, for example, will have a very similar colorway. So if your website is very dark and moody and your Instagram is bright and airy, that is a brand that doesn't match in its voice, and your message is not coming across because your message is one or the other. So you need to figure out what that message is, and then you want to figure out how to stay consistent with it across all platforms. And then, as I mentioned already, you want to brand all your client-facing materials. So paperwork, contracts, anything else you're sending to your clients, whatever they receive from you, however you share your first drafts or anything like that, it needs to be branded as well. So it needs to at least have your logo on it, but I would recommend also having some kind of the same color scheme and the same fonts as well. Lastly, you want to expand that brand message to social media posts and advertising. So if you've decided on what your brand message will be, who you will be as a business, how you will operate as a business, what's important to you, what your values are, and you want to expand that message to social media. So you want to make sure that in your descriptions on your profiles on social media, it kind of says in short what your brand message is. When you're running any kind of advertising, that your main headlines might be a short version of that brand message. So just figure out, it's almost like an extension of your logo in a way. It's your one little short tagline that you're going to use across the board to kind of solidify and let people know what your brand and your business is all about. When you saw that I wanted to talk about a business plan and some tips for a business plan, you might have thought to yourself, why do I need a business plan? I am just starting out. I am going to be doing art and digital art. Do I really need a business plan? A business plan sounds like something you would need if you're opening a brick and mortar store or you are trying to get a loan from a bank. But if you've seen those 50-page business plans floating around, this might be the reason why you will be discouraged from creating one. Having a business plan is actually very vital to the future of your success and the future of a successful business. And in this section, I'm going to show you how a one-page business plan, just one page, can make a massive difference in your future. And before I continue on to the tips, I just want to let you know that that one-page business plan, I do have a PDF of it, and it's going to be linked for you right in the resources of this webinar, so you can go ahead and grab it and use it as many times as you want for as long as you need to. The first step to any successful business plan is to figure out your business identity. You want to figure out who you are as a digital artist, what your business will offer, what kind of services you'll offer. But for the most part, what you want to think about is you're going to go back to that branding that we talked about, and you're going to think about how it is that you want other people to see your business, what values you represent, what core values you represent, really, what you stand for, what you will not stand for, and things like that. So you want to think of your business as if you were interviewing for a job somewhere. And when the job asks you what kind of values you have as an interviewee, because they want to see if your values align with their values as a company. So think of either yourself interviewing or think of your business growing really, really far, and you are now taking on other employees. Now, what would you tell those employees about your business? What kind of values will you want them to have in order to relate to your own and the way that you see your business operating? All of those values, all of those things are your business identity. So you want to figure that out as your first step. Then you want to make a list of all your products and all your services that you will be offering, and you will have those on your business plan or anywhere that is easily accessible, somewhere where you can easily communicate it to clients. Having a list of your products and services is a very easy way to define what your business is all about and what you will be all about as a digital artist. From there, this is a very easy part because we've already discussed it. You're going to define your ideal client, and you should have already defined that previously when we have originally talked about where your ideal client is and who they are. At this point, you want to really sit down and kind of break down everything that you've thought about your ideal client into a very short little paragraph. So perhaps think of them as a real person. I know that helps a lot. In the corporate world, that is what they do. They will name their ideal client. They will talk about who she or he is, or they are, and they will literally make a list of who their ideal client is as if they were a real person. Sometimes they'll even have images that match their ideal client and what they will look like. It's a very helpful exercise, and I really encourage you to do this as you're building your business plan. And as we've also talked about before, you want to figure out where they spend their time. And in this case, when you're building your business plan, you want to write down where they spend their time, whether it be online or in person, but you want to make note of that and put that in your business plan. And another thing that you're going to think about for your business plan is you're going to sit down and truly think about how it is that you are solving some sort of problem for that ideal client. So you need to think of what a problem could be that you're going to solve with your digital art business and how you can help your client by opening your business. The purpose of your business will be very important here because there's no point of opening something if there isn't isn't somebody who's interested in it. And usually people are interested in hiring out help, artistry, or anything like that because they have a problem that they need solved. For example, for my cover design business, the reason I decided to open it in the first place is because, of course, I love the art of book cover design, but also because when I was writing and I needed to hire out artists to do my book cover design, and this was back in the day, it's very different now. The landscape is very different now. But back in the day, there was not really many options for kind of in the middle cover designs. So for cover designs that had a price point that I was comfortable with, that wasn't too low and wasn't too high, and had the type of work that I wanted in the fantasy book landscape. So when I was first started to write, that was not as readily available as it is now. And so when I started my business, I really wanted to kind of come in between. I know that prices grow, and as you grow as an artist, you will raise your prices. But for the most part, my business and the goal of my business and the value of my business is never to go above a certain price point. I want to stay somewhere in that middle range. And because I do this because when I first started, that was the value that I wanted to bring to the table. That was the problem that I wanted to solve. And I want my business to stay on track with that. The next thing you want to have on your business plan is some ideas for marketing. How are you going to get the word out there about your business? It doesn't have to be paid marketing or advertising, but if you're going to be marketing on social media, then you want to make a note of it here, because that's going to help you define how you're going to represent your business for the majority of the time that your business will be operational. You can always change this, but to start, you want to know how and where you will be marketing your business when you open it. Lastly, you want to set monthly revenue goals. This is very important. It could be hard to do at first because you don't want to set them too high, you don't want to set them too low, but you could start and set your goals in quarterly sections. You don't have to sit down and do them for the whole year, but it is important that you set some goals for yourself. It will drive you to work that much harder on your business, and it will help you form a more realistic goal for the full year of your income. So when you sit down, let's say you decide to do just the first quarter of the year, and you set certain goals for yourself. For example, you want to start out just making $3,000 a month. That is your goal for the first quarter. And when you finish off the quarter, you found that maybe you made a little bit less than that. So you would reconsider how much you want to make in your second quarter. Now you take the little bit less than you made and you'd add a small percentage on top of it because you'd want to do more. You want to grow your business. And that's how you would evaluate what your monthly revenue goals are quarterly. And if you already know that you can make a certain amount every month, let's say you have a very steady potential client base already, people already reaching out to you before you even open your business, then go ahead and sit down and create these goals for the whole year. And make sure you check in with your business plan and your revenue goals every single month to see how you did and adjust accordingly. Thinking about workflow when it comes to a creative, and especially a digital creative, is very difficult sometimes, because when I think about workflow, usually I think of the steps that it would take to do a job. And usually that job is physical. For example, the steps that it would take to do laundry. You need to separate the laundry. You need to put the laundry into your actual machine. You need to load it up with detergent and softener and the rest of the stuff you put in there. Then you need to turn it on. Then you need to dry it. And then you need to fold it. Those are the steps, the workflow that it will take for you to do laundry. But what does it mean to have a workflow for a digital creative? And I ask my question that a lot. I ask myself that a lot, and I ask myself that throughout my business because my workflow changes very much. And I definitely encourage you that before you even land your first job or your client, to sit down and think about what your workflow will be. So for a digital creative, what is a workflow? It's simply the steps that you will take with each project from the beginning to the end. It can include anything from the steps needed to create your art. Let's say you will do a rough sketch first for your client. Then you'll build your coloring base. Then you'll do detailing. Then you'll do more detailing, or there's some edits in between there. It could be anything from that to sending out forms and contracts to clients. So maybe you have some forms that you'll need to send out prior to even booking someone in, or maybe you will have contracts to send out during the process or before the process. And it could even lead to basic client communication. You could have workflow practices in place with your communication of a client. Let's say that you know that when a client reaches out to you and you have booked them in, that you are going to start your communication workflow by talking to them on the day before their project starts, the day of the start of their project, 3 days after, when you will come in for them with, say, a rough sketch. Then you will need another 5 days to do base coloring. So you'll communicate with them then, and you will send them something else. Then 7 days after or something like that, there's another communication, another email, etc., etc. So every step of the way that you take to complete your project from start to finish is part of your workflow. And so I really want you to think about that before you start landing clients, because you want to be prepared and you don't want to scramble once you get your first client to reach out to them when you need to send them things when you need to. You want your workflow in place so you have a map for yourself to follow. So my first advice, my first tip for you when you're thinking about your workflow is to brainstorm it first. Just sit down and figure out on a piece of paper in a notepad. I have a notebook that I keep that's just for brainstorm, dump ideas kind of, that I sit down and I'll brainstorm my workflow. So everything we talked about, I'll say, I need to send out this questionnaire first, then I follow up with a contract, then there's another follow-up for the deposit to book their time in. Then we talk about what they want to do for the job. I ask them to come back with a finished questionnaire. I go over that questionnaire. If I have any questions, I'll ask them. Then I go back and I do my rough composition or something like that. And I will send that to them. From there, we'll work on some painting. I will send that to them. From there, we'll do some edits. Then we'll work on typography. Then we'll do more edits. So things like that. Write everything down, whatever comes to mind, whatever you think you'll do throughout one project. Brainstorm everything. Think of that ideal client and pretend you landed them, and see how you work with this imaginary client in your mind, and write down everything you are working on this imaginary project in your workflow brainstorm. And then from there, you can pick it out and move it around and actually set it aside in the different sections that you'll be working with. And almost, if it helps, put everything you brainstormed on a Post-it note and stick that Post-it note on your wall and move those Post-it notes around until you have the perfect workflow in place. Then when you already have this workflow in place, when you have your Post-it notes, whether they're Post-it notes in your head, on the computer, or on an actual wall, you want to take them and create a chart for yourself based on this workflow. And you want to keep that chart somewhere where you can reference it easily. So we talked about how your workflow is actually a map for you to follow. In order to follow a map, you need to be able to see it regularly. So keep it on your computer, print it out, put it somewhere where when you're working, you know exactly what to follow step by step. You also want to communicate your workflow on your website so people know what to expect. A good way to do this is have a how to work with me section in your menu, or maybe in your footer or something. And you want to make sure that people know what to expect and what steps you'll take when working with them. People don't like to be surprised. They don't want you to take on a job where they don't know what to expect from you or what kind of steps you'll take, and if there'll be communication, if there'll be constant communication, if they're going to have time to give you edits, how it's going to work. So you want to make sure that your workflow is easily communicated on your website or on your social media platform so people know what to expect. You can also email your workflow charts to your clients if that helps. So when you sign a client or when a client reaches out to you about possibly booking you in, you can send them this workflow chart, make it pretty, brand it according to what your business looks like, and send it out to them. And it looks very professional and it helps put them at ease. One of the most important tips I can give you for your workflow and when you're setting it up is to have all your necessary paperwork ready to go. You want all your client questionnaires, your contract, any terms and conditions that you sent out, any other prerequisite paperwork that you need, even your invoicing and how you've set that up. Have it all branded, ready to go in one folder somewhere it's easy access for you, because when you get that first client, you don't want them to wait for a while until you get everything ready. You want to be ready to go because you don't want them to think that maybe you're not prepared and go elsewhere. And then don't forget that your workflow can also apply to things like website updates, social sharing, client outreach, and all other business related admin tasks. So you can work that into your workflow as well. Let's say that on every Friday or every Saturday or something, you do website updates, you do your social sharing every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday or something like that. Then you have days for client outreach or anything that's business related, even catching up on emails. That could be part of your own personal workflow. You don't have to share that on your website or with your clients, but you could have two different workflows. One that is client facing and one that is just for yourself and your admin tasks. Also, as your business grows, and if it grows enough that you need to hire a assistant of some sort, a virtual assistant, or somebody else to help you in the business, it'll be very easy for you to have this admin workflow to hand over so they know exactly what to follow. A very important part of any business, specifically a business that has to do with anything creative or any art-based business, is to have client expectations and to set client expectations. Setting some expectations with your clients and everyone that you work with, it doesn't even have to be clients, it could be other people that you work with in order to create your work. It can make a huge difference. Before you get overwhelmed and stressed, you want to make sure you have some of these in place and that you communicate them clearly, because it will save you quite a bit of headache in the future. One of the main things about setting client expectations is you want to let your clients know what they can expect from you. This can go back to that workflow that we just talked about, because if they know what they can expect you on which days of whatever time you have set together, then it's easier for them to follow up. If you are late or anything like that, they will know that it doesn't fall into that workflow. So you just want them to know exactly when you'll be communicating with them, what kind of work you'll do for them, what is within the scope of that work, what is outside the scope of that work. Make sure everything is included. If you have signed a client for a character sketch and they come back and they want to add another character to it, you want to make sure that you originally communicated that the work you are doing for them is just for one character. And because then you can say, I know we agreed to work on just one character. I have no problem putting the second character in there and working on that as well. However, it's going to take this much more time and it's going to cost this much more. You want to make sure that the expectation is there so that you don't end up working for free and be disappointing your clients. In order to do that, the best way to communicate anything is contracts. Contracts are key here. For any digital creative work, for any creative work, really, any artistry, you should have a contract in place. I am not a lawyer. I am not going to advise you on any legal things of having a contract, but I would recommend that you get yourself a contract ready. You can find one online, but I would definitely recommend speaking to somebody who is a lawyer to kind of finalize it. It is especially important if you are going to be working on something like I am working on, which is book cover design. If you do any kind of photo bashing where you use stock photos, for example, those come with licenses that need to be communicated to your client in your contract. And the reason that we do this is you want to cover your own butts. So you want to make sure that if your client goes outside the contract and does something, that it does not come back to bite you in the butt. And you have to communicate that with your client. So having a contract you both sign for every single job is very, very important. You also want to show your terms and conditions very clearly. So you want to have these on your website, you want to have these in your contract, or you can send them out separately. So when you send somebody your contract, your questionnaire for the work or anything like that, also send your terms and conditions. And your terms and conditions could be something as simple as letting them know how long the job is going to take or what you're going to need from them to meet those job requirements. It can be as complicated as letting them know different parts of the contract, explaining that to them. So set your terms and conditions and make sure that they're communicated everywhere. Because again, going back to the contracts, we're covering our butts here. We are doing creative work, and it's very easy for creative work to be misinterpreted and for things to kind of fall in the cracks. So you want to make sure that there are no cracks in your floor, that you are ready to go. And if you are selling any products online, make sure that when those products are bought, that your terms and conditions go out with them, or that your customers, your online customers who shop on your website, for example, click off that they have read the terms and conditions before they purchase. Because again, that is like a contract that you are placing. So if your work has any kind of commercial specifications, let's say that you do not give commercial rights for certain things, that they have to pay more for commercial rights. So things like that are part of your terms and conditions. And if you're selling anything that's pre-created online, let's say you are selling any images online, but they're for personal use only, you need to make sure that your terms and conditions state that they're for personal use only, and that if a commercial usage of them is required, that they need to pay a certain fee, reach out to you, or there's going to be a new contract in place for that. And your clients, your online clients, need to check those off, or they need to read those. It needs to be sent to them somehow in order for them to purchase that product. Another good way to set client expectations is to let your clients know your deadlines. So you can let them know that by this date, they can expect this type of work from you. By this date, they can expect this type of work from you. That the whole project, the scope of the project will take a certain amount of time. Very often, and I find this because I have worked with other digital artists before for different things that I don't do myself, and there is no date that's set. It's kind of open-ended, and as a client, it becomes very frustrating to sit around and wait for a job to get completed and not know when to reach out. You don't want to bother people. You know that it takes time to create art, and so you don't want to be a nuisance, but you also want to know what to expect. So don't be the type of artist that doesn't let your client know what your deadlines are and when they can expect something from you. Be dependable. And if they view you as dependable, they will view your business as dependable. And that's what you want. You're an extension of your business. And so you want your business to be a rock, a solid rock that they know what to expect from. And of course, if you set deadlines, make sure you meet them. You can't tell somebody you're going to get something done from them in a week, then disappear for a month and still think you have that job. You no longer have that client. And not only do you not have that client, but you likely will have a very bad review of that client and they will not recommend you. So if you set a deadline, make sure you meet it. Emergencies happen. Life happens. We all know it. Life is crazy. But if something comes up and you can't meet your deadline, don't feel bad about emailing your client, calling them, however you communicate, and letting them know, hey, I'm so sorry. I know I said today, this has happened. I will get it to you by tomorrow or the day after or whatever it is. Clients are understanding. They're people too. They won't mind. So just make sure that you communicate if something happens and don't just leave people hanging. And that goes back to having open and constant communication with your client. Don't feel bad about emailing. I am always in communication with my clients. We often go back and forth on emails. The threads that I have with some of my clients are like hundreds of emails long just for one project, because we go back and forth on every little thing and we communicate as though we are face to face. A lot of times now we work online, and so it's much harder than to sit down in a room with someone and chat about the project the way that we used to, and kind of go from there. If your clients are mostly in other places in the world, which for me, for example, all of my clients are not even in my own country. And so it's very easy for me to kind of get forgetful about certain things, but having that open and constant communication opens up this doorway. It's almost like a text message with a friend. You really get to know your clients better. Your expectations are set better. And not only that, but you'll find you'll have a lot less edits to do with every round if you just constantly communicate with your client. If you want to make a small change, or if you want to suggest something based on your experience and your expertise, just email them and let them know that that's what you want to do and see how they feel about it. Because before you do it and then they say, oh, you know what, I don't actually like it, now you have to go and change it, you could have talked about it all in the first place and saved everybody a whole bunch of time. And lastly, and this sort of falls in client expectations, but you want to ask for reviews and you want to share those reviews. Reviews are very important because it will help new clients set expectations for themselves based on what they can expect from you. So other clients can let them know how they felt about working with you, what they liked best, and that will already start a client expectation mentality in clients you haven't even signed yet and people who might just want to work with you. So ask for reviews. Don't be afraid to ask for reviews. I ask for reviews with every new client that I work with, and I ask for that review after they complete the job and after they're happy. And I share those everywhere I can. I share them on my website. I share them on social media, and I usually keep that going. So asking for reviews can be a great way to start client expectations before you even sign the client. So now we're kind of at that fun part of this webinar where we are going to talk about money, how to invoice for success. This is a great topic to talk about because other than the art itself, the next best thing about running a digital art business is actually getting paid to do what you love. I mean, there is a reason why you are here, and it's because you want to take something that you love doing and turn it into something that pays your bills. There could be nothing that feels better than that. When I first left the corporate world, and I was pretty high up in the corporate world, and to leave that, to lose that income stream was very difficult. But then to start my own businesses and to realize that I can make the same kind of income, if not more, depending on how hard I want to work. And I can get paid to do what I love instead of working for somebody else. I can set my own schedule, and I can just continue to be a creative, and a creative that people value and want to hire. There is no better feeling than that. There is no better feeling than someone willing to pay you to create art. But how do you get paid? And what systems should you have in place to accommodate smooth transactions? Well, we're going to cover that in this portion of the webinar. So there's a couple of different ways that you can start when you are first invoicing your client. So I say start because you can expand from these as you move on and as your business grows. But for starters, what you want in place essentially is a way to reach out to your clients that's not an email transfer and it's not a cash transaction. And it's a way for them to pay you for your work in a way that can be tracked. So a way that you can then use for taxes and show your income. And also a way that you can track those invoices so there's no miscommunication, right? Communication is key, as we've already talked about. And some of those places are, I think, places like PayPal, Stripe, Venmo, Shopify, and other places like that. All of these have a way for you to create an invoice that you can send to your client, and a way that you can actually brand your invoice. So going back to that business branding that we had, you can put your logo on it. You can even change the colors in some of these places. And that's a really good way to go about it. My main advice would be, if you are using any of these places, make sure that your invoice has all the relevant information in it. So make sure that everything that you need to be in an invoice before you commit to one of these, that they allow you to create the kind of invoice that you will need. And that's for legal purposes. So everything you will need on that invoice will be there. You also want to think about having some sort of accounting software. So I use QuickBooks for myself. FreshBooks is another option. I'm sure there's others out there. Those are the two main ones that I can think of off the top of my head. But you want to have some kind of accounting software, and you want to have this from the start. I really like QuickBooks because they have different packages. So if you're just starting out, you can have a self-employed package, which is, I believe, only $5 a month or something like that. So it's not very expensive, but it's a great way to monitor what sales are coming in and all of your expenses. So think about business expenses from the beginning. The biggest mistake I've ever made when I started my original business, so not the cover design business that I have now, but I had a couple of businesses before. And the biggest mistake I made with my first business that I started was that I was using my personal accounts and everything I did on my personal debit cards, credit cards, etc. I was using those for the business. And when it came time for taxes, and to write my taxes and to write things off and show my expenses and show the income that I made, it was such a headache. I think it took me like a month probably to get through that, because I had to go through so many different expenses and different income streams just to figure it out, and everything was in one place. So software, accounting software like QuickBooks, like FreshBooks, they will help you organize it. And you just want to make sure that when you do get the software, that you stay on top of it. I go and track my expenses every 2 to 3 days. I just sign onto the app. I take a half an hour. I attach all the proper receipts that I already have collected, and then I file it off. And then every month I go through and I sit down and I check my income against my expenses, and I see what happened, where it happened, and I just make sure that everything's ready to go. So when it comes time to do your taxes, whether you do your taxes quarterly or yearly, everything is in one place. You just export it, you send it to your accountant, or if you do your own accounting, my hat's off to you because my brain does not work that way. But whatever you need, it's all there in this one software, accounting software that you can export for yourself. There's no mistakes. If you ever get audited or anything like that happens, it's very easy with these accounting softwares for you to pull everything out that you need to make sure that your business is in good standing. You can also use a workflow portal, so places like Pludio, Trello, Asana, things like that. There's a few, like Honeybook is another one that's really good for digital creatives. So that's something you can look into as well. I would not recommend this when you're first starting out, because it's just an added expense to your business that you don't need at the beginning, and you can get away with even charging like through Stripe or PayPal or anything like that originally at first. And then as your business grows, you can get into having a workflow portal. I am only this year implementing a workflow portal into my business, and I have a very successful cover design business. So it might take time. I just didn't want to take on the extra expense. So that's something to think about. But what a workflow portal will do for you is it's one space that will take away all the other things that you do. So you won't need to go on your email separately. You won't need to share your files in a separate place in a different Dropbox or in Google Drive or anything like that. You don't need to go outside to a different app to invoice. You don't need to have your paperwork on your computer that you email. Everything is in one place. And that's a great way to run your business. But just make sure that you are at a point where your business makes enough money to justify the monthly expense, because some of these can get expensive depending on how many clients you have, how much work you're doing, how many times you need to invoice every month and stuff like that. So just make sure that you take a look at that and that it makes sense for your business. But a workflow portal is a fantastic way to help your business run smoother. And then part of invoicing with any kind of creative work, any kind of digital artwork is, are you going to take deposits to book? So I would recommend that you do, and I would recommend that you take deposits from the beginning. When you're just starting out, your deposits can be small. You can take a 10% non-refundable deposit just to book your time. So you want to make sure that people know that you are serious, that you are going to provide the work, and in order for them to book you in, that they need to pay a deposit that they will not get back. And the reason to do this is because if you have a client that flakes on you, that doesn't show up, or they cancel, that is time you're no longer getting paid for. It's going to be hard for you to fill it unless you have like a constant rotation of clients that need last minute work, which is not very realistic. So now you are sitting with an empty place on your calendar. And so you want to take those deposits to book. It makes you look more serious, and it lets your client know that you are serious about the job. I currently take a 50% non-refundable deposit to book in my time. And then what I do is after the job is completed, then I receive the other 50% for the job. I know a lot of different digital artists that will take a 10 to 20% to 50% deposit, and they will require full payment before they even start work. So sit down and figure out what works best for yourself. I find when you're first starting out, and just in general, this is my own personal opinion, of course, I find in taking a deposit at first and then the rest of the money that is owed for the job at the end, at the completion of the job, at the approval of the client, just makes more sense. It puts the client at ease, and it just breaks up invoicing very easily for me. So something to think about. Consider in taking deposits just to book in your time. And then, as we kind of a little bit touched on when we talked about the first point, the first tip here is you want to design your invoices to match your brand. So this goes back to all the branding. Your invoices, everything you're sending to your clients should be branded. Everything your business puts out there should be branded to have the same feel, look, to show your values, to show your message. And your invoices are no different from that. So make sure your logo is on there. Make sure the colors are there. If you can change fonts, do that. That's great. So whatever you need to do, have that on your invoices. If you have some sort of quote or saying or message that you have with your business and it's all over your website, all over your social media, add that to your invoices too. Make it fun, make it you. And very important, don't forget to have links to your terms and services on your invoices. So when you're sending out an invoice, even if you're going to send those terms of service to your client later on separately, make sure that there's somewhere that you are linking to them or you're letting them know that there's going to be terms of service coming to expect it and they have to sign it. So just communicate that as well, because this is from a legal standpoint, very, very important. And going back to that communication, you want to add all the necessary notes into the invoice. So you can put in the start date of the job, the end date of the job, what exactly they're getting. You want to make sure that if you're taking deposits, that it clearly states that this is a deposit. And then in the notes, you want to put in what will be left after the deposit is paid and what the total price of the job is. And you want to make sure that you state somewhere what it is that they're paying for, obviously. Just be transparent. You want your invoices to be as transparent as possible, because then your client knows what they're paying for, you know what they're paying for, and everything is out in the open for everybody to see. And lastly, we are in the learning portion of the webinar, and I'm going to talk to you very quickly about learning your way forward and what that means. So the most important part of any business is not to get stagnant. As your business grows, you want to continue to invest back into your craft and into your education. It'll be the best investment you'll make, and your clients will thank you for it. Also, the more you learn, the more you know, the higher prices can be. So there's a lot of things that learning your way forward can help with, and we're just going to talk about a few of them in this next section. So why is it important to learn your way forward for a digital artist or a digital creative? Because, well, technology changes, and it changes very, very fast. This is no longer the days of when it takes 10 years to create new technology. I was, believe it or not, around when the first Photoshop was first starting to get used, and it took a very long time from that day to the next progression in technology. But these days, something new pops up. It seems like every single day, or something gets updated. There's different new tricks, techniques, everything, trends in art. So you want to adapt to this new technology changes, and you want to learn every single new thing, because not only will the technology that you currently use for your digital art change, but there might be something out there that comes out to make your life easier and to make your art better. So you want to learn different tasks. A good way to also learn your way forward is to join designer or artist groups so you can learn from other people. Now these can be groups on Facebook, there's Discord channels, there's all kinds of, there's local artist groups that you can actually join and meet with people in real life. So just try to surround yourself with other artists, other designers, other digital creatives, because the best way to learn is to learn from someone else, and you can teach someone else your skill set and they can teach you what they know, and you can kind of share different tips and tricks with each other. And it's a really great way to learn. And not only that, but you can actually find clients that way, because they might have somebody that's more suited to your style. You might have somebody that's more suited to their style. And it's a very collaborative way of working within the industry. We don't gatekeep here. I really dislike when people hide the craft to themselves. It is important to have your own style, your own ideas, but I think it's also very important for creatives to support other creatives. We're all in this together. And so it's very important for you to have that community. And trust me, when you start working more and more with clients, you will need to have that community around you, because you might have some questions that you don't know the answer to, and you might not be able to find it on Google or online somewhere. So it might be nice to just ask somebody in person or in a Facebook group of how they go about doing it. So consider joining some groups. I think it's a great way to communicate with others. And then, of course, you can find other people that are in the trade that have more skill than you, and you learn from them. There are a lot of people that have courses out there, myself included, that offer these courses to other artists who are just starting out, who are starting to learn. And it's a great way to learn from others. A lot of creatives also have TikTok channels, YouTube channels where they teach this stuff for free. And they're very knowledgeable in what they do. And it's a great way to not only support them and their different channels that they have, but also for you to learn from others who are more skilled than you. And of course, the more you know, the better your craft and the higher your prices can be. So you can raise your prices when your craft is better. So why not make your craft better in order to raise your prices? This is a business after all. We want to treat it as a business. So learn your way forward in order to grow your business. And that is all I have for you for this webinar. I hope that it got you excited and it got you ready to grow your digital art business. I am very excited for you. I would love to hear from you if you want to stay in touch with me. I'm always eager to meet new digital artists. So make sure that you find me on social. I'm on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, all under either Cauldron Press or Cauldron Press Designs or Cauldron Press book cover designs. So make sure you reach out. I'd love to chat with you and let me know about whatever business it is that you're starting out. And I'd love to hear if you found this webinar helpful. If you'd want to leave a review for the webinar, that would be really fantastic. You can leave it directly on the Thinkific page where you are taking it. And that really helps spread the word, or just spread the word on social on your own if you found this useful. I also have a fantasy book cover design course that I'd love to offer you if you are interested in going that route. I will be in touch after you're done with this webinar, an email to kind of let you know how to get started on that. So I will not bombard you with that right now, but keep an eye out and I will be in your inbox with a very short email to just let you know if you're interested in getting into fantasy book cover design as a business opportunity. I do have a course that kind of takes you from start to finish and everything you need to know on how to design a fantasy book cover. And with that, I just want to thank you for joining me. I hope that you found this webinar useful and helpful. And I had such a blast recording it for you. And I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, and as I said before, feel free to reach out. I love talking to new creatives and I will hopefully talk to you soon. Good luck in your creative art business, your digital art business. I wish you all the best and I cannot wait to see your art grow out there.